Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the BFS Fishing channel. And in this video, we're going to be going over the Ifishband Tendershoot round BFS reel. In this video, I want to do kind of a really short-term impressions, but also I want to do a teardown video to show you guys what the internals are like on this particular reel. Now, I do want to kind of put out a disclaimer there that this reel, while the benchmark for this reel was the Daiwa Millionaire, and you can see how very close in appearance they are very different reels. And, you know, you kind of have to give some leeway to Ifishband because they were trying to hit a cost target. So they're trying to come in at under $150 to produce this reel. So there are going to be some downsides to this reel compared to, you know, say something like this. I will say though that they are very different reels. They look the same, but you know, when you buy a Daiwa Millionaire or a Shimano Conquest BFS, you're getting what you pay for. I mean, but at the same time, you're paying what 2 to 3 times more in price than this reel right here. So for this reel, the cast testing from 1 gram to 7 gram, and it does cast 1 to 7 gram, but it was very limited test casting, and I wasn't able to actually measure any of the distances with a tape measure or anything like that. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it that it does actually cast that, and you know, I will be getting some more use and test casting and actual on the water use with this reel very shortly. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the reel. Let's go ahead and tear it down, and then we will kind of talk about some of the pros and the cons. And actually, before we even do that, let's go ahead and bring the Millionaire out again. So I noticed off the bat that the handle actually sticks out further than the Daiwa Millionaire. And I went back to the company, Ifishband, and I asked them, you know, what's the reason for that? Why does it look a little goofy? And it was explained to me that actually, the reason that this handle is so far out is to create better balance. Now, if I hold this Millionaire, it does feel very heavy in the main gear area. So in comparison, this feels like it's very well balanced, whereas the Millionaire kind of feels like it wants to tip over and fall over in my hands. And that's kind of attention to detail like that that's actually quite impressive out of this Tendershoot reel. But anyways, let's go ahead and, sorry, I segued into that. Let's go ahead and get into this reel. And in order to start, we're gonna need a little hex bit. And this one is going to be it looks like it's a 2mm hex. Now, I don't know why they went with a hex screw, but they did, and that is the case. I would have liked to have seen, you know, it's just something simple. Okay, so this is a right-hand reel, so I'm going to go opposite to loose, or lefty-loosey, as normal. One of the other things that I kind of didn't really like, and this is just personal taste, right, is the fact that the handle is a very, you know, flat and not swept handle. And the measurement of the length, I believe it's posted, but we'll go ahead and measure it anyways. Let me get my calipers out. All right, from handle knob to handle knob, we are looking at about, it looks to be about 80 millimeters. So this is an 80 millimeter handle. And actually we need to go ahead and take a look at whether or not there are bearings in the handle knobs. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and use my little handle knob cap puller tool. And these handle knobs are very similar to, you know, what you see on Shimano or Daiwa reels. They are like an eye-shaped knob, and they're covered in like a TPU style rubber. And then we're gonna go ahead and remove this Phillips screw, which is in here. Quite tight. And I think in the last video I did mention that the shimming was a little bit off. It could have been a little bit better, but it's not terrible. I will say though that these bearings that are in here, if they are bearings, interesting. Okay, so let me see here. So what do we have? We've got, whoa. Okay, so for the first thing that comes out from the outer portion of the handle knob, I've got a bearing, or sorry, a bushing and a shim. Is there anything else in there? No, there is not. So right off the bat, this handle has 2 bushings, which, okay, hey guys, so I went ahead and actually reached out to Dankung and Ifishband separately, and they've actually gotten back to me with word on what their plan of action is. And I wanted to give them a chance to actually, give some official language on what was going on and what they would actually start doing for people who have already bought their reels with the 4 bushings, making their reels essentially a 7+1 ball bearing reel. And so there are 3 things. So the first thing is that if you purchase your reel from Dankung, that basically Dankung has or will contact you if your reel has already shipped out or if it's currently in shipment, and they will basically either offer to send replacement bearings to you free of charge, or you can go ahead and send the reel back to them. Now, I don't know if they're going to be paying for postage. I hope that they would be considering doing that, because that could get quite expensive, especially if it's overseas. The second number is for those who have ordered and your reel hasn't actually shipped out. Those particular reels will go back to the factory, and then they will be retrofitted with the actual bearings in the handle knobs and then be shipped out to you. So if you've experienced kind of a delay and you haven't gotten your reel when you thought you would, that is probably the reason why. If you have ordered from Dankung, I would just go ahead and reach out to them and check in with them and see what's going on, especially if you've already gotten your reel, or if you actually have your reel in transit. Now, if you've purchased it from the US retailer, then I don't know, because I don't have any official language from them. I suggest that you guys go ahead and reach out and see what their plan of action is going to be. The third thing that Ifishband actually wanted to say is that this was actually a mistake from the factory, and that Ifishband is actually kind of owning up to this and making things right by either offering to send out those replacement bearings, or to take your reel back, and if you're in the process of purchasing one right now, then they would take it back, retrofit it, and then send it back out to you, or just to take it back altogether. So yeah, good on Ifishband and Dankung to kind of own up to it and then make things right. It is kind of an oversight, and it is kind of a sad thing to see, but it was the first batch. The second batch that is currently going out right now and being worked on is going to have the right number of bearings. Kind of an oversight, really big oversight actually, but they are making things right. They're doing their best to make things right. Any newer subsequent reels should not have this issue. And, I'll definitely be checking in on this. And if you guys have any information on that, please go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section down below. But anyways, sorry to segue into this little message, but I wanted to give the official language that's coming from Dankung and also from Ifishband about the issue that I found with this. And that's why I do these videos, to find these issues in reels. Okay, let's get back to the video. I am not that big a fan of, and I kind of noticed that the handle knobs did not rotate very well. So I don't know if you guys remember that from the initial video. So okay, kind of an interesting thing. They're claiming 11+1 ball bearings. So if there's not 4 bearings in this portion of the reel, I'm not sure where they're going to be getting 11 bearings. So yeah, I hope I hope there's 11 bearings in this reel. But okay, I'm going to put this back together. Again, it's not the end of the day if you don't have bearings in your handle knob, and actually most people will likely change this out anyways, because it does feel a little wonky, and actually after taking that out, it does rotate a little bit better. So maybe you just need to take out the end caps and then kind of release the screw a little bit, because maybe it's a little too tight. Anyways, continuing on into the teardown. And I will say though that Ifishband does not actually manufacture these reels, and that they use an OEM company, and that's part of the reason why the reels were so delayed, they were actually having a lot of QC issues, and those reels that they were making were continuing to be recalled. And so if you go to the Dankung website, you'll notice that they have a little note there that says that all of the reels that are going out as of, I think, July 26th have that issue addressed. So yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with your reels, but if you do, then kind of make sure that you keep an eye on that, and then be aware that it was kind of an issue there. And I've asked what the issue was, and I think it was that the reel itself felt a little bit geary. So that's kind of what I was experiencing, a little bit of a geary sensation in this particular reel. And again, I don't know if this is a production model or if it's a test model or if it's a display model that was sent to me. Okay, anyways, so we've got two spring washers that are opposing right here. Go set those down. We've got this retention piece, and then we've got, looks like, two flat washers. And let me go ahead and use my forceps. There's two of those. They're flat right there. And then it looks like we do have one bearing. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the spool tension knob just to make sure that there is a bearing buried somewhere deep inside there. And then this is a shaftless spool, as we all have seen. Here is that goes with this assembly. Go ahead and put that right there. And it does appear that there is a bearing, and we'll see that on the inner portion of this particular reel. Let's see if I can get this main gear shaft bearing out, but it doesn't want to come out now. So we're just going to move on. And so the next part is going to be to actually go ahead and remove the side plate. Okay, so in order to take out the side plate, you do have to release this screw, because this actually goes all the way across and screws into around here on the side plate, and we'll see that shortly. We'll go ahead and rotate this side plate forward, and then it will just open right up, and the spool will come with it. You can see that I put some line on here and kind of messed around with it. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and measure the bearing on this. All right, back with my spool pin removal tool, and we'll go ahead and try to remove this spool pin. Alrighty, so it does look like it is possible that my spool pin removal tool may not actually work. Okay, so I'm gonna have to revisit this, because the spool pin removal tool shaft is actually bigger than the spool pin itself, which means that I can't actually push it out with this press tool. So that kind of sucks. Well, instead of pressing my luck anymore with that, I'm going to go ahead and push it back to its original position, and then maybe we can at least get an outer diameter measurement, and then kind of guesstimate, or kind of get a rough measurement on the inner diameter. I hope you guys are able to see all of this, because I'm moving off of the this little area, this mat here. Okay, so let's get our calipers. I'll go ahead and get a measurement on the outer diameter, and the outer diameter is coming in at 8.99, so basically a 9mm outer diameter. And then if I can see correctly, let me see if I can't measure the inner diameter. It looks like it's going to be a 5mm, and then the width is going to be very difficult to measure, but it looks like it's like a it looks like it's going to be about a 3mm width. So kind of an interesting size. You know, I would love to be able to get this off and then give it a nice acetone bath, and then use my own lube of choice, which is super lube. And I like to use a really light oil, so I think it's a ISO 100, which is very, very light. But yeah, that's kind of unfortunate that you can't really get the spool pin off very easily. I do want to show you a close-up of the construction of the spool. So here is the flat plate that interacts with your magnetic brakes, and it does look like it's adhered inside with some sort of adhesive, probably glue. So that's a part to kind of look out for and be aware of. And then it's got your typical spoked design on the inside, no porting at all, very thin walled, pretty narrow as well. And I think I did have measurements on the last video for this particular reel. Okay, so that's enough with the spool. Let's go ahead and take a look at the side plate now. And the side plate, we've got the brake assembly, which kind of moves in and out depending on how you rotate this inner dial right here. And that's why you've got these little grooves so that you can get a little bit of traction. Okay, so here's a gripe that I have. So this is actually the 0 setting. And to go to the max setting, I'm going to rotate there. So it's almost a quarter turn of this entire circle to go to the max brakes. In addition, there are no indicator marks, so you don't know where your brake position is really. And then all of the clicks, if you can hear, not only are they very light, but they're also very close together. So you have to put a lot of force into this to kind of move it. And because the individual clicks are so close together, it's a little hard to get like fine-tune adjustments on your brake dial. But anyways, the brakes do work and they are quite strong. But let's go ahead and take a look at the side plate bearing. So basically what I'm doing is I'm removing this spring clip right here very carefully so that it doesn't fly off. And yeah, if you don't have a nice pair of forceps, then go ahead and get you some. These are very fine forceps and you can see they've seen better days. But yeah, let's go ahead and remove this bearing. And this bearing removal tool, I got this from roro.com. Interesting. 2 shims came out. 2 washers just came out of the bearing. And the bearing itself then came out. Actually, 3. I got 3 shims there. And then on the inner part of the side plate itself, if you can see down into the bore, there is that anti-friction material. And then there is another... let me see if I can't take this out. Another 2... 2 shims underneath there. Very interesting. I've never actually seen that before. So that could be a really good thing because they're taking the time and effort to kind of shim everything so that it doesn't really move around inside of the side plate. But you could also kind of see it as a bad thing because, you know, the machining may have not been so precise. So interesting. I'm going to have to reach out to Ifishband about that and then see what they've got to say. Once I do find out about that, I will let you guys know. But I have never, ever seen that in a reel. And I'm trying to put everything back so that, you know, I don't have to do this later. But sorry, I'll probably fast forward this part. Okay, so that is the side plate. It is CNC'd aluminum. You can see the construction. You know, there are obviously some plastic parts. But yeah, for the most part, the side plate is CNC aluminum. These 3 bearing shims, I've again never seen that before. That is very interesting. Put those to the side, and then we'll go ahead and get our measurements for the bearing. And the outer diameter of this bearing is going to come in at a 10, and the inner diameter is coming in at a 3. 2.73 is what I'm measuring, but that's probably a 3. And then our width is going to be 4. Yeah, it's a 4. So this is a 1034 bearing. So pretty standard bearing for the side plate. So you could easily replace that with a Roro bearing. Okay, so let's take a look at the inside of this reel, because the last time I looked at it, it was kind of interesting to me to see what I saw, and I don't think I mentioned this at all. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is basically that you have an outer aluminum shell, and then you have a carbon, I think this is carbon inner portion. I'm going to have to reach out to Ifishband and check with them. But that is kind of their way of doing 2 things, reducing weight, but also saving on cost. And so that's one of the ways that they were able to get this reel to be so cheap, I think. So affordable, I guess, if you want to say it in a nice way. Okay, so if you want to see, I'm doing the scratch test, and this does feel like it has fibers in it. And so I'm pretty sure that that is a carbon inner portion of a frame, I guess. It's not the entire frame, because the entire frame you can see is one piece that goes across, and then you have the plates for the main gear housing, but it does provide support for other parts to kind of screw into. And so you can see that this portion right here is also carbon. It's the same exact color as the inside, maybe finished a little bit better. And then you can see that the inside of here is also carbon as well. So interesting to see that they've used carbon successfully to kind of help reduce weight and reduce costs as well, while still kind of maintaining the feel and the rigidity of this aluminum chassis. The other thing is that this button right here, this is actually what they call a powdered metal plastic part. And so you do have a thin layer of real metal on top of a plastic piece. Okay, so enough talking about that. Now go ahead and set that aside. We'll go ahead and get into the guts of this reel. Oops, wrong screwdriver. So you're gonna need a Phillips for this. And I'll go ahead and put all the tools you'll need if you do plan on taking apart your particular copy of this reel, you know, to do any kind of pre-maintenance or cleaning and relubing that you might want to do. Okay, so that's the back screw from the top, and this is the front screw from the top, and then there's one screw on the underneath portion. We're going to go ahead and remove that one. Does not look like there's any kind of thread lock or anything like that, so that's fine. And notice that one of the screws is actually longer than the other two, and that longer one goes in the bottom location. All right, so let's go ahead and open her up. And here she is. Okay, so here, let's take a look at this part before we take a look at this part. So we do have quite a bit of grease. I don't know if you see that. You can see it's all kind of caked on the side, so I will probably clean all of that up. Actually, maybe I'll go ahead and do that now, because that will not really do anything for the reel. And most likely later on, I will come back and clean this up a bit. And we do have a bearing right here for the spool tension, so that is good. So far, bearing count, what we have is 1, we've got 2, we've got 3, and we've got 4 right now. Okay, so go ahead and put the main gear cover down, and then we'll go ahead and look at the main gear assembly itself. And so we do have a main gear shaft bearing, so that is good. And then we have our anti-reverse bearing. So that is the +1 that they always refer to, and it does have a sleeve on the inside. So right there, you can just kind of push it out and go ahead and set that down. And there is a directionality to this anti-reverse bearing. So you want the white plastic portion to be facing down towards the main gear itself. Okay, let's go ahead and take out the main gear, and it looks like this is what our clicker mechanism is. And so we've got a ball and kind of detent style system, and underneath there's nothing. This does appear to be aluminum. The gear teeth do look like they're cut pretty well, so I don't know if you guys can see that. And yeah, nothing super special. There's not many teeth. They are fairly large. They're kind of angled. Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about that. Okay, underneath we've got a drag washer. This does not look to be carbon. I'm not sure what material this is. If anybody knows, please go ahead and mention it in the comment section down below. It's kind of a smoother surface on one side and then almost like a paper finish on the other. And it does absorb grease quite well because I just touched that momentarily. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that down here, and then an anti-reverse ratchet gear. And then let's go ahead and remove the pinion and clutch. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. And here you go. Here is the, let me go ahead and wipe this off a bit. Okay, so here it is. And sorry, the gloves are kind of greasy. It does look machined well. Cuts are precise. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the worst that I've ever seen, but it's also not the best that I've ever seen. But yeah, it should do. All right, so I'm gonna put the pinion down. Okay, so now I believe that I will have to... I think I have to come in from this side first. Remove... Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and break out my C-clip removal tool, which is nothing more than a security screw bit, but it works pretty great for these small C-clips. There's some better than others. This one is quite tiny. Let's see. Aha, there we go. All right, so C-clip removed. I'm gonna go ahead and put that down really, really small. And I'm wondering if there's shims, like this is a brass shim, I believe. There is definitely one. I just can't get it to come undone. That's okay. I'll leave that there. Now I'm trying to move the main gear shaft, but is not wanting to budge. So keep in mind that round profile reels are kind of built a little bit differently than low profile reels, especially the internals. And so I have not torn down too many round profile reels. And so this is why I am kind of sitting here scratching my head. So let me do a little bit of experimenting. I'm going to remove one Phillips on the inside portion, and then I'll see if I can't remove this one as well. Oh, that one Phillips and that one, there's a little plate on the inside. I don't know if you guys can see that right here. There is one little tiny plate that is removable after taking out that little Phillips screw. And so I'm going to see if I can't gently remove this piece right there. And I can show you guys a little bit closer. So that's what it looks like. It's just a little piece of metal. So a little plate of sorts. So let's go ahead and see if we can't. Okay, so the worm shaft, it does have a bearing here. You can see it does not appear to have bearings on the opposite side. And I'm going to go back and check the schematics actually right now, just to make sure and double check. Because if they're reporting 11+1 ball bearings, if they count these bushings as bearings, then that would make sense that there is 11+1. So let's take a look. And that's why schematics are nice, because you can always revisit them and just to double check. And so it does look like 72, part number 72 right here, is actually the bearing on this side. Well, you can see right there that there is a bearing right here, and it can be removed. And on this side, on the inner portion, I don't know if you guys can see, but there is no bearing. So there's not a double bearing on the worm shaft itself. Okay, so if there's no double bearing there, then let's see if we can't remove our main gear. Aha, so our main gear, in order to remove the main gear shaft, there are two little windows on the little cogwheel here. And when you line them up correctly, you'll actually see and expose two small Phillips screws. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those. And hopefully this will pop right out. And we do have a bearing on the underside of this shaft as well. Okay, so let's do a bearing count. And I feel like I'm going to be a little bit disappointed because of the handle and the bushings in the handle. All right, so let's do the bearing count. So the bearing count is... we've got 1 in the spool, 2, 3, we've got 4, 5, we've got 6, we've got, where's 7? We need a 7th. 7 right here. So 7, and then if these actually had bearings in them, that would make 11, because there would be 8, 9, 10, and 11. But unfortunately, I believe these are bushings and not bearings, so I'm not really sure what's going on, and I will reach out to Ifishband just for a little bit more clarity. But anyways, that's why I make videos like this, because I want to show you guys what is actually inside of these reels. Is it a huge deal? No, it's not a huge deal. Do I wish that this was actually double supported with bearings on both sides of the main gear shaft? Yes, I do. Do I understand why these kind of shortcomings and kind of strategic decisions, I guess, were met? Yes, I do, because they're trying to make a round reel that fits in a budget of $150 or less. And they did reach that target with this reel being sold at Dankung for $142. And I believe Bait Finesse Empire also has it for somewhere in the upper 130s. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, so interesting that, that was found. And again, I will reach out to Ifishband. I will get the story straight, and then I will report back to you guys in the next video for this reel. And again, this reel does cast 1 to 7 in my very limited testing. Well, so 1 to 7 grams, sorry. So yeah, if you found this video informative, if you found this video to your liking, I would really appreciate it if you went ahead and gave the video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, this is the kind of content you can kind of expect to see on this channel. Teardowns, unbiased reel reviews, as unbiased as I can, because nobody can actually be 100% unbiased. We're all people. We all have our own opinions. But I will do my best to be as unbiased as possible, and throw a little subjective opinion in there from time to time. But yeah, that's what this channel is all about, BFS gear reviews. Anyways, with that being said, I thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.